This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, Game Breaker Malta, GMR Entertainment, WJ England and Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real. And here we are, a fantastic racetrack, a fantastic vehicle, a fantastic brand, a fantastic manufacturer, some fantastic drivers, some fantastic racing action. Keep saying fantastic over and over and over again, because this is one place, one race where everybody can understand this is where fantastic comes to life. This track, one of the most ferocious, one of the most fast, one of the most thrilling. This is Monza we head to. It is, of course, the Temple of Speed, and this is one that's very interesting as we go with Lamborghini here today for your official Maltese Community Challenge, the second of 3, which now will become the second of 4. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the party, ladies and gentlemen. We're live on motorsport.tv, on ESTV. We are live on TVM Sport. We are live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and on Twitch. This is World Pro Racing. This is fantastic. I'm Jake Sperry, joined alongside by Nicholas Hillebrand. And Nicholas, when you go and talk about Monza, the Temple of Speed, there are so many memories that get entrenched with this circuit on the outskirts of Milan here in Monza. There is so much speed, so much heritage that goes around with racing like this. How important of a legacy marker does Monza have in terms of the realm of racing and sim racing?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Monza, most definitely one of the most prestigious racetracks on the world. And yeah, I mean, everyone knows it as the Temple of Speed. It has just such a high speed part, unlike any other circuit. You are flat out for so long on the lap, and even when you have to brake, it's not really, for a long time, because all the chicanes that you have in there, all the, corners that aren't chicanes, you never really go very low speed. The slowest, I think, is for turn 1, actually, and, of course, the very, very big decider all the time. If there's going to be a crash, it's probably at turn 1, because it's just after being on the throttle for so long, being side by side for so long, you suddenly have to go for this single line because it just gets so narrow there. And just alone that in the modern, version of Monza, that alone is just already known for such a legendary bit, to make racing very interesting. But at the same time, of course, you mentioned heritage. It's just, the most obvious thing, the old oval, of course, still, back on the day they used to race there. It was an even faster circuit back then, and, we still drive under that before we get to Ascari. So, if you want motorsports history, just still alive and, still still alive, breathing, and right there, Monza is definitely the track to pick.
Absolutely it is. And if you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen, you can like, you can share, and you can subscribe for so many actions that are coming along, so many races that are available very soon, and you can do so live, of course, with so much that's going on. You can subscribe to World Pro Racing on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. You can go and look at all the socials that are available for all of the partners who are here with us today. And what is very important as well, there is going to be another couple of partners here that have already been announced with World Pro Racing. HyperX have jumped up onto the train, as have Data Video as well. We'd love to welcome them onto the World Pro Racing brand and say, well, welcome to the party. Hope you enjoy your stay. But this is one of the few tracks you look at as we're a handful of minutes away from practice, Nicholas, where you can honestly say that there's a lot that can be done. There's every single corner that's very entertaining. We're going to have a little look at what events are coming up, though, just after this event, the 17 laps we have today. And, of course, the Formula Challenge, as we know, in 1 week's time here with World Pro Racing at the Spielberg circuit, the Red Bull Ring. And then who can beat Mount Panorama Bathurst? That will be in 3 weeks' time on the 19th of August, and that will be one that you definitely do not want to miss. It seems that it is great track after great track here, Nicholas, that we continue to go to, but focus is going to be key. You can apply now on worldproracing.com. Head over there and enter yourself into the event. It's going to be absolutely magnificent to see so many people get themselves involved. But as we said, let's focus it all down towards Monza. There's not many places, Nicholas, where every single corner just feels like a thrill ride and is memorable.
Yeah, it definitely is that way at Monza. It's well, as I said, very unique track. It's probably one of the racetracks that isn't an oval with the highest percentage of actually, flat out racing. And the lap alone, like when you're just on a quali lap, you have to get everything perfectly right, because if you get at least one of the corners right, it can cost you tenths. But not only just, you're not only losing time for the corners, but also you're losing drive onto the next straight. You need to carry every bit of momentum onto the straight, even with GT3 cars, which have very high power. And yeah, it's going to be a ride, definitely. And the racing here, of course, you have so many different ways to actually go on about the race here, because are you going to just go for that overtake, or are you going to try and just hang back a little bit, save some fuel, and also save a bit of tires and not cost yourself some more time, because it's really difficult to overtake here, because every single time you just get side by side into corners, and huge potential for time loss, of course.
Absolutely, and a lot of people, if you put this in a cyberpunk setting, they'd call it Slipstream Central or something to that ilk, because of the fact that this place has so many long straights, one of the highest average top speeds of any circuit that you will find on any calendar at all. Nicholas, what's going to be key here today is that drivers stay within a range of the driver in front. If they are within half a second, they have a chance at pretty much every long straight here today. On the run down to the Retafilo, you got the likes, of course, of the run to Della Roggia, and then, of course, that famous Parabolica corner. There are so many places here today where overtakes are legitimately available to happen.
Well, not only that, but also on the exit of Parabolica, you get to such a wide front straight. It's just going to be quite interesting to see how people tackle it. And of course, since you have such a wide, long straight, there's this really big temptation to just go 3 wide, and suddenly comes the big shock of Variante Retafilo, where it's just so narrow. It's almost like, a section of, of a super speedway leading straight into a section of Monaco. There we are, right track at the end. But yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see definitely how people tackle this. And yeah, practice starting shortly.
We certainly are going to have practice starting shortly within the next minute or so. And it has been a case to be seen that there is a form guide set in terms of these challenges. One in the back pocket for one Mr. Windy Boy, who picked up the victory overall with a dominant display at Brands Hatch in the Nissan GTR, winning by 37 seconds on Gran Turismo Sport. And we have the same platform here again see some wonderful racing going on in this sphere of sim racing. We go over, though, to live pictures here, live coverage of practice just starting, and there is Windy at the moment making the push in the Lamborghini GT3 over towards the final corner here, the Parabolica, the long 180-degree right-hand corner, a tyre killer, back up onto the power and get going. This will be a little look at how tough this place is going to be. You can see a 1:47.1 in terms of time is the fastest that anybody has been able to achieve so far, but what everybody sees about this track is actually how much of a blast it is. It feels almost street circuit-like, as you did say, Nicholas, and the fact that you do have a lot of close proximity barriers, left, right, and centre, trying to go and negotiate your way around. But what's key here is actually how you pick up the throttle around this place. This has to be a case of slow in, fast out, and really maximising every braking zone. That's a track with very little corners in comparison to other tracks of this sort of length. You really have to maximise every braking zone and make sure there aren't too many mistakes.
Yes, definitely. And you mentioned it, slow in, fast out, and the fastest way out, of course, is the least bumpy way. But of course, as it gets very crowded for a second in the first Lesmo, the fastest way, of course, is the smoothest way out of the corner. And with these high curbs, it's just so tempting. And also just very easy to just take a little bit too much curb, get the car upset, and steal yourself a little bit of that traction. And it's going to cost you dearly in any situation. And if someone's right behind you with that situation and he gets that corner exit a little bit better, then you're going to be looking at a very difficult defense for the next couple corners.
And this is such a very quick lap. Every driver here who will be racing will be trying to get up near the front, of course, and trying to get themselves a merit point, some would say, in picking up a challenge like this. You don't want to be going through these challenge series events, one-off events, and finding yourself behind again and again and again. This is all about versatility, and while you don't see too much versatility between GT3 to GT3, so to speak, to get a look at an automated pit stop here with Gran Turismo Sport, you very quickly go through with the tyres, and the fuel crops up as well, and you get yourself back out going on circuit very, very quickly. And they can see 36% of the tank filled up for Windy to go out for a couple more runs around this place. But what's key is how you need to really adapt between race to race to race. I think you'll find that after this week here, Nicholas, we're probably looking at a case to be made where I think a whole lot of drivers will maybe struggle a little bit more with what's coming up, because we're moving from a closed wheelbase to an open wheelbase.
Yeah, we're moving to open wheelbase, just generally open wheel cars from these Group 3 vehicles. And it's definitely something different to drive. Those things have a lot more aerodynamics and, of course, are a lot more agile due to weighing around half of the weight of these Group 3 machines. And I think we might see a couple different faces maybe at the front there. But, at the moment, of course, we're also seeing quite a few familiar faces right now. Again, we've seen Shelina in the last couple of races before. We've seen Windy, we've seen Mark last week. And Relax Racing, of course, as well. First with the Mazda in bright yellow at Spa. And last time, of course, in the Nissan. And now in a nice Lambo. And Rike is back as well.
Absolutely. Yellow seems to be a lucky colour for Relax, but there is Rike right now making progress through Parabolica. That middle of the pack was so entertaining to watch last time out at Brands Hatch. It did split itself apart, but everybody was having a large fight as Rike dives down in onto the pits. There you can see just in the background there of that shot, there was the podium that people get a nice little bit of a stand on if they find themselves a victory or a top 3 around this place. But everybody knows what they need to do here. It's been ingrained in many a driver on how to drive at Monza. It has been a real fan favourite in terms of racing, in terms of building together what can be a sensational circuit, and it is the ultimate thrill ride in terms of top speed for a modern circuit. We talk about circuits like Circuit de la Sarthe, for example, which really is the endurance epitome of speed, but here this is the, I would say, track variants where most people go and say, if you want to get to top speed, if you want to truly understand the thrill of racing and sim racing, drive a couple of laps around Monza, because you will soon understand why it is so brilliant to race at high speed against so many competitors.
Yeah, most definitely, especially since you can have just so many cars here. I think in real life, in the GT World Challenge, they have around 50 to 60 cars here. So that's every single year when they go here. That's a spectacle to watch, all of those cars cramming into the first corner. And yeah, also, you know, just Monza with the general way that it's made, a very nice example of how a track doesn't have to have huge elevation changes, like, for example, you know, Brands Hatch, which had them on the Grand Prix circuit, and of course for Turn 1 and all that, or for example Spa. So the two tracks that we went to before, you know, very, very big, you know, on the just being built into a hillside. But, you know, Monza is overall not that much up and down. It's more of a flat circuit, but still, just with all the corners here, you know, the way that the corners are built, the way that the circuit is built, it just makes for such interesting racing. So a very nice example of completely different type of circuit.
Absolutely, you don't necessarily find too much in terms of downhill around this place. Very unpronounced, very slow gradual descent, where you maybe only go down 1% really at a time. The only real rise in terms of this circuit is going underneath the old oval banking and making that push up. As we get a look at Chris Spiteri trying to make a run here through the two Lesmo right-handers. A very tough section of road this, because you've got that one first corner which is very inviting, very easy to understeer and run wide, and this second corner, which again also an inviting corner. You can really be aggressive on that inside curve, but the moment you start stepping outside, that gravel really does jump upon you and make life tough. And this is one of the few tracks where you can really say here at the moment, Nicholas, that it does embrace some of the old school characteristics of racing circuit. In fact, you don't have a plethora of runoff. You do at corners like the Parabolica, you do at turn 4, but there are still elements of this circuit which still feel like they came out of 20 years ago. For example, run up to Ascari, you still got gravel there on the outside. It's this fantastic hybrid mix of bringing in safety elements around this circuit and still keeping that authenticity.
Yes, most definitely. Like, a big part of this circuit is still very much untouched to the curses of tarmac runoff. As you said here, very beautiful to see, as well as we're just looking over this sea of gravel and grass. You know, at Ascari, if you miss your entry point into the entire corner section, then you're just going to go straight, and these hundreds of thousands of little rocks are just going to welcome you among them, and of course, it's going to cost you a lot of time, it's going to get your tires dirty, and it's not going to feel very nice if you drive through it. But at the same time, a couple of corners before that, Curva di Lesmo, 6 and 7, both of those as well, if you just mess up a little bit there, you know, you have a little bit of a runoff on the outside, but after that, it's just gravel and grass, how a racetrack just used to be, and nothing much has changed there for Monza.
Absolutely not. As we take a look at F-Frame here, having a good solid run of things at the moment. 10th position though, down 4.7, now down to just 4.1 seconds compared to your time setter at the moment. That being, of course, Windy at the front, Celine who's second at the moment, Mark in third, and you got Marino here diving down into the pits, no lap representative at this point in time. We're about 6 minutes away from the start of qualifying, and a lot of drivers here will be looking at putting maybe a couple of qualifying laps in, a couple of stints as well will be key. But we've been talking about philosophy and strategy here in this race. It's a 17-lap event, and what we have seen is normally stints split into two, but the difference here is that firstly, A, long lap around this place, but B, high fuel consumption. Now that could really change the strategy, and it may just take away just how much those tyres get used as they come down in and make a stop, and maybe we're looking at 3 stops today compared to 2 because of that fuel consumption.
Yeah, that could very well be, but at the same time, I'm wondering whether it's maybe a good idea to just go for that 2-stop. You know, like, you can gamble for a 1-stop definitely here, because there's not that many corners, but the issue is at Monza, the corners that you do have, you really need every little bit of tire grip, even though stuff like Lesmo 2 is on camber, and Cova Grande, no matter what your tires say, unless they actually blow out in the middle of the corner, it's going to be flat out. But still, you just need the maximum tire grip. Every single acceleration zone out of the chicanes, you need every bit of traction, and of course, you need good tires for that. So it's going to be an interesting play to see how people actually treat this race, if they're going to try full aggressive and, you know, with a bit of fuel saving, maybe make that one stop work, or if they're going to go for the two stop here and, well, you know, it's just quite difficult here to say, because it's just such long straights. You can, as I said before, you can do so many strategies while racing here. And with the 9 times tire wear, it's of course a bit less predictable how long the tires are going to last with everyone here.
Absolutely, and another case of unpredictability will be how much go and cut the corner, and when and how do you get that off-track penalty that may have to be served during the race or get served post-race. Now, that's going to be very key. You'll see a couple of cars ghost in and out of an ethereal plane, so to speak, when they do get a penalty. We've seen it once already over the course of the qualifying. You see a big red box that comes up on screen. It says 4/10, for example, of penalty served. Now, this track is notorious in gaming history. When you look at sim racing history, Nicholas, for being very, very tough to police in terms of track limits, mainly due to the fact that you've got chicanes, you've got a natural runoff area down at turn number 1, but also we've seen so many times before how many different sort of games and sims and franchises have had to put in proper concrete barriers through the chicanes to make sure that people aren't going to take the mickey, so to speak, and go and cut the corners. With the Gran Turismo slowdown system, I doubt we're going to be seeing any of that today.
Yeah, the slowdown system is a very nice way to get away from the concrete barriers that you mentioned, of course. But yeah, it's it's just very difficult to police something like that. Of course, in a video game, you're not going to be, you know, running at the risk of having an accident where you can break your bones or something. So of course you have a little bit just less of a protective instinct for yourself while you're driving around a track like this. But yeah, either way, it's one of these things that is just very easy to get wrong. You see here for the Variante della Roggia, on the left-hand side of the screen, if you go straight there, you see that rejoin line, and just hold with that and follow that line, and you are clear to rejoin safely. But at the same time, you go over these anti-cuts and stuff. You do it too quickly, of course, you gain time, and here you're going to get a hefty slowdown, which is penalty enough already. And of course, while you're rejoining, luckily in Gran Turismo Sport, you're going to have this nice ghosting system here, which can also prevent some potential trouble.
Absolutely. We're looking at Zelinu at the moment, 2 minutes away from qualifying. We are at the moment, and that Lamborghini looks like it has been bolted on by the livery that's on show for this one for Zelinu. And this is going to be a very, very interesting little battle that we're going to see. We saw how Windy just absolutely waltzed away with the entirety of the field, of course, at that wonderful Brands Hatch race that we saw 1 week ago. Questions will remain on whether that's going to be similar. And of course, when you get to qualifying, the best possible chance comes along at that section. Who is going to be a person to step up to Windy at the moment? Answer is, doesn't look like anyone at the moment. 1.3 seconds clear of anybody else right now. Mark looks strong today, though. 3rd position right now in the orange Lamborghini.
Yes, most definitely. We've seen him last week already with a quite solid performance as well. Windy seems to be a little bit in his own world again, but I think with the distances right now, with Rike and Ivan and Relax, Chilino, and of course Mark, being so close together, I think we can look forward to quite a nice start of the race duel again, as we had it last week with these humongous Nissans just wrestling it in this group of 4. And yeah, I think it should be quite interesting here. We're going to have a bit of Lamborghini Huracan GT3 pack racing here at Monza.
Absolutely. If you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen, like, share and subscribe to World Pro Racing. And if you are looking for more events in terms of your sim racing and you want to find yourself up to a next level on many different platforms, not just Gran Turismo Sport, head over to worldproracing.com, sign up and take part in some upcoming events. Now, qualifying just a couple of moments away as everybody looks to try and get ready for all of the action that's going to be going on. But Nicholas, qualifying is so entertaining. We see drivers get 1 lap out, maybe 2 laps out of those tyres, trying to maximize as much as possible the 15 minutes that they have available. But what does it take to put together the perfect qualifying lap?
Well, it takes absolute concentration. It takes, perfect car control. And of course, you have to hit all the marks perfectly on one single lap. And so far, Windy has been able to do this quite well. We saw him at Brands Hatch, in the most unlikely of positions, just at the start, very fast, middle sector a bit slower, and last sector, then just still whipping out another 10th. So I think for the people looking for the fastest laps, Windy's going to put on quite a show on for today again. But for the rest of the field as well, I think it's going to be very, very interesting with the names I've named just now in practice. Who's going to be on top there, who's going to be starting right behind Windy for this race, and who's going to be looking for that turn 1 dive bomb even maybe.
No guarantees on who gets pole position, but the form book looks very, very printed in toward Windy's situation at the moment. And there are a lot of drivers who want to get themselves up at the top of the order. We saw how at Brands Hatch a lot of qualifying laps were put in, and a lot of drivers managed to gain late in the session to go and put things together. In terms of session time, you can see exactly where drivers are in terms of time on the right-hand side near the bottom of your screen. If you look up to the very top, you can see a nice little mini track map. Red indicates the driver that we are on at the moment here, which is Windy, and we're going to go for a flying lap on board. Any car in blue will be pointed out as any other vehicle on the mini-map, but the long front stretch into 6th gear, heading up towards 260 kilometers an hour, now searching for a braking point on the left-hand side, and you smash it down at around the 150 marker board and into the right and the left of the Variante Rettifilo. The first chicane out on circuit, back onto the power, moving over right through acceleration past 3rd gear, and now through Curva Grande. This fantastic right-hand bend, flat out trying to go through this section, and now you go as narrow as you possibly can because the second chicane comes up. Use the crane in front to just sight out where you're going to be through the Della Roggia, nice and neat over the curbs, using all of the road through that opening section there. And now you get to the technical part, the middle sector and the 2 Lesmos.
Yes, now coming out of Lesmo 1 and now going to very tricky Lesmo 2, braking at 50 meters here, just skipping on that inside curb there. Very risky to do, but very well done here by Windy. Going now through the Curva del Seraglio. This little corner here, just going this tiny downhill bend underneath the oval, now coming to Ascari, one of the most iconic corner combinations, down to 3rd gear, clipping that apex, and now trying to keep it tight here just so you have a bit of a more open run into the last left-hander, and heading down the back straight towards, of course, very famous turn 11, the Curva Parabolica, now into 6th gear, over 250 kilometers an hour, and at 100 meters, no, even further back, he brakes down to 3rd gear, 145 kilometers an hour, I think we saw there as his cornering speed, and now just flat out keeps it on the outside to keep as much momentum as possible. And let's see, what lap time is it? It's
47.8. It looks like here over the board, so that's good. Relax there on a 48.9, a whole second back at the moment, so everyone trying to get those times in. Ivan 49.3. 3rd at the moment, 3/10 off of what is needed. Shalinu does not get the time that's needed at all, stays 4th. Kenneth there into 5th, but Rike at 1:59, definitely not representative right now as everyone starts to see those times funneling in. Mr. Colin on a 1:50.2 moves up into 5th position. A good qualifying so far from Mr. Colin in the white Lamborghini right now, making the progress towards that first chicane. Once again, did not have the best of times. A quiet time when it came to Brands Hatch a week ago. We'll be looking for something a little bit more, but it seems like Relax is the person trying to step up to the plate and try and get as close as possible here to Windy, but it is, once again, a 1 second buffer.
Yes, and you know, everyone here at the moment, as it is usually with first laps in qualifying, it's not the perfect lap just from the start. And I think Monza is actually also one of these circuits where you can go for more than just one hot lap with this 9 times tire wear. But yeah, he seems quite on point at the moment, just barely clipping the inside curb there and staying very long on the right-hand side, just clipping very hard over the inside left-hand curb there, out of the Ascari. And yeah, I think everyone here, Relax, Ivan, Chelino, everyone here just, you know, they still have a lot of potential to improve. I think we saw Windy earlier with a 47.0. So I think that he probably wants to, you know, improve himself a little bit further there.
Speaking of improvement, at 47.84, therefore, Windy slightly does improve the time. Relax coming over the line, looking to try and find that improvement, can't quite find it, so an extra tenth has gone Windy's way. Chelino, though, moves up into 3rd place there with a 49.2, only a quarter of a second behind Relax at the moment. Rike jumps up into 5th position. Chris Terry finds a bit of time as well. Mr. Colin then making progress over towards the line and does not find that improvement. Marino does, though, just behind, as Ephraim at the moment looks to try and find some time here through the final sector. Very difficult to go through Ascari. You always want to put the power down as early as possible. It says Papa Smurf on the car, and well, I definitely don't think that this is a Smurf attempt. Some would say this is not a secondary attempt. This has got to be a primary attempt here from Ephraim at the moment, trying to make that progress. Could very easily dive down into the pits. Time's not there, but this is very interesting. A lot of drivers then on these opening laps going for 2 laps to a stint, and they will look to try and get 2 laps more. Most drivers, I believe, will be looking to try and dive down onto the pits, it would seem, at the end of this lap. Now, Nicholas, what's going to be key here is that quite a few drivers found more on their second lap compared to their first, and that's a case of diminishing returns. Everyone finding the right groove, just dialing it in for that second lap.
Yeah, I think it seems that on this circuit for qualifying, it's actually more important to have a light car. That is what I would guess from, you know, the results that we had so far. The tire wear doesn't seem to be affecting it too much, but if you have that little bit more, you know, just on the, you know, on the left, on the weight side, you know, like this bit more advantage, you could be looking at a greater advantage, of course, there. And we actually have Chelino just going up a bit as well. New qualifying time 48.9 and 49.3 here for Rike as well. So everyone's there starting to even improve on their third lap. So seems at the moment that the tire wear doesn't seem to be that bad here at all.
And that's very, very crucial. If drivers are getting good laps on their second, on their third attempt, it means that we're going to be seeing everyone get themselves into a groove, into a rhythm, and try and find that time. Mark jumps up the order into 7th place. That jumps down Chris Terry, who we're looking at right now. Marino just gone around then at the Parabolica corner. I wonder if we are able to catch a replay of that just yet after that, but it doesn't look the case. Windy there, and of course Relax, both out there on circuit. Now, here's something very interesting. Expect Relax here to maybe dive down into the pits. Has done 3 laps on the stint, has not gone and improved the time just yet. Windy is on an out lap right now. You can tell it is Windy because you can see that rear spoiler every single time, every single vehicle, WNDY. It's trademark to know where Windy is out on circuit.
Yeah, and he really does have that on every single one of his cars. We saw it first with the Beetle, of course, at Spa. You know, just driving the Beetle alone, enough of a standout thing to do here. And yeah, he just sticks with his guns. He sticks with his normal trademark signs, you would say. But yeah, he also sticks with his absolutely stellar pace that he's shown so far and starts yet another lap. So I'm quite excited to see now where he will end up. Maybe he's going to try and top his time that he had in practice.
Doesn't have long to do it though. 5.5 minutes left on the clock. We are already 10 minutes through, as that's a great time from Ivan Birmingham, and that is up 0.4 of a second only behind Windy, a 48.3. That came out of relative nowhere.
Yeah, very late time there, and I think actually Ivan still hasn't gone to pit yet. So, yeah, these tires seem to be living for quite some time here, so even on softs, one stop might be possible if you play your cards right. Mark, meanwhile, 49.0, so he's also improving, just past Rike, and also, yeah, actually no, he just passed Rike, but still, you know, very nice there. He's probably going to try and stay within this little group there, because the more people you have, of course, on a straight that just give each other a slipstream, you know, the more slipstream you have and the more fuel you can save, of course. So just staying within a bigger group, of course, it might actually save you some time as long as you don't fight too aggressively. Meanwhile, Windy here, completely by himself, very, very desperate, surely, to show a bit more time improvement, because he realized, well, Ivan actually doesn't seem to be quite that upset yet. Let's try and make him a bit upset.
Well, it's one of those cases that Michael Schumacher did so very, very well in his career, when everything felt like it was under lock and key. You put in a world-class lap and you find improvements. Now, Windy's going to come in, get some fresh tyres and go back out again. You can see the fuel down to 22. Windy likes to run the tank large in terms of the first qualifying laps and bring that tank down again and again and again for how the qualifying laps all seem to go. Ivan, with mistakes through Parabolica, will also dive down into the pits, but Relax, looking for some lap time, does not find some lap time just there, but will be going on. Try and make those attempts at finding time. 3.5 minutes left to go. Your top five: Windy, Ivan, and then you've got Relax, Shalinu, and then Mark in 5th position at the moment, just diving down into the lane. We're into the crunch time. If you watch American football, this would be effectively your 2-minute warning or your 2-minute drills that you start getting into on trying to get that final touchdown.
And that final touchdown is, of course, going to be very important within this group from 2nd to 6th place. You have, well, you have Windy once again, you know, a little bit further away, and of course, oh, that's another nice improvement there, another 10th. Well, actually, quite a bit more than a 10th.
Certainly is. Look at that. Up to 3rd position goes Mr. Colin, having a great qualifying here at Monza. Loves the Lamborghini, it seems, and up into 3rd place. And now that is shaking a lot of things up. Ephraim finds some improvements, goes to 8th place. But we look at Windy on the outlap here. 2 minutes, 23 seconds remaining here in this one. And it's all about getting up through the gears to 6th. Right now, behind Marino, who is the last of the drivers at the moment, in 11th position here in qualifying. Chris Terry finds a little bit of improvement, only a 10th now behind Ephraim. That should put Chris up into 9th place, but Windy runs wide, misses the anti-cut curb there on the outside. And now, let's go and see how much of a lap this could definitely be. Having that toe down the front stretch, that is a lovely bonus that Windy's going to have. Has to pull out, though, to the right-hand side, try and make the move, as Shalinu jumps up into 3rd position. But Windy here, a little bit compromised into the opening chicane. Was that all worth it for that little bit of toe?
Yeah, this is the big question here, and I think he also, you know, he saw that little touch there just before the braking zone, you know, a little bit of a nudge there, basically saying, come on, man, I'm alongside, please just let me through. I want to put some more time in, and yeah, it really doesn't seem to have been worth it, because 2 tenths down for Sector 1, and yeah, as it seems right now, he will probably try to find all this time through the rest of the corners here. Stays very far inside, just completely nailing that inside curve for Lesmo 1. Brakes late once again, and actually not hitting the inside curve for Lesmo 2 as hard as he did before. And yeah, maybe that also brings him a bit of time, because the car just stayed a little bit calmer through there.
Absolutely, through the dappled grove of trees then on the left-hand side, and up in the 2nd sector is clear by 400. So that was great work in that middle sector through the Ascari chicane and now on towards Parabolica. This is looking like a really good lap. There is some insurance, it seems, at this point. A handful of drivers then were looking like they're not going to be able to get themselves laps completed. Mr. Colin is one of them right now. Chris Pateri finds more improvement then, jumps up into 8th position overall. But here's Windy now, making the push to the line. Should have one more lap after this. This is going to be crucial. And that's a 47.4. Finds an extra 0.4 of a second in the final sector alone. Relax Racing stays in 4th place with that time. There's Shalinu then jumps up into 2nd as Ivan slides it there through Parabolica. Just about gathers it up there with the oversteer through the corner. Grabs the curb though on exit and into the Armco. And that does that for Ivan's lap time. Here is the replay then up on screen. You can see struggling already through the opening section. Gets out on the AstroTurf then on the left-hand side. And just like that, bam, it's gone. Rike finds improvement on the last lap. Remains, though, in 7th position overall. Relax out there on a flyer at the moment, it seems, and hoping there is going to be time for one more. That time remaining on the clock is to finish their laps. This is the final chance that anybody is going to have to find some sense of improvement, and this is going to be a huge lap. There is a vehicle pointing the wrong way, though, through this section. That's not helpful at all. The yellow flags would have been out there for who I believe that was Mark there in 4th position, who was around, but Relax trying to find something. Same for Shalinu, same for Ivan at this stage as they all start to push through the final sectors of this lap. And now here, this is the final chance. Relax, the last car on circuit. Nobody else is going to be able to find that improvement. Everybody else is in the cycle of automation right now as they wait for everybody else to finish their laps. Currently, it's Windy on pole, Shalinu 2nd, Ivan 3rd, Mark 4th, Relax down in 5th place with Mr. Colin 6th, Rike in 7th, and Chris Spiteri there in 8th place. Huge wiggle again from a driver through Parabolica. It's almost like they try and turn in early and then they realise there's no grip left, so they have to gather it back up again. Relax over the line, will not find any improvement. So Windy will put the car on pole position with absolutely everybody over the line. And Nicholas, that was pretty much what you could say a perfect qualifying at the front, start to finish.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, Windy once again coming with that last lap improvement here. And yeah, Relax trying to do the same thing. Sadly, didn't quite work. But yeah, nevertheless, 5th place, no position, of course, to start the race from to be ashamed of. Very nice in the mid-pack. And of course, and yeah, how do we say this best? The start, of course, decides about a lot, but it's 17 laps. And in this entire midfield pack here, we've seen so much fighting there before. And I think from 2nd down to 7th, we might have quite a lot of fighting. Because, of course, Shalinu and Ivan had the 1 lap pace down. But on race pace, they were a lot closer to the guys behind them.
Absolutely, they were. The automated start then here, a rolling start for all of these drivers. They go when they are told to go in system. There's the 3, there's the 2, there's the 1. 17 laps starts right now. Windy in command then at the front, but everybody will start to snake and try and get themselves in the draft. Serpentine for the top 5 like it's Indianapolis Motor Speedway as they go down to the Retafilo for the very first time. Shalinu under the pressure right now of Ivan behind, and it looks like there was contact between them as they went on through, and it's drama in the middle of the pack. We expected everything to close up there, but that was a massive incident. Huge contact going on in the middle. Mr. Colin got a tap from it. Ivan there down into a few issues as well. We'll catch a replay of this one as they all funneled on through. Now you can see this. That's already one vehicle. That's Rike having a spin there into the opening section. And look at how Ephraim really gains those places going on through. Wide goes Mark, wide goes Mr. Colin, all from Ivan, and Ephraim through the middle is up into 4th place off of the start. What a start. Perfect start for Windy that was needed there, Nicholas. He went on through. He's got the gap already.
Yeah, most definitely. It seems Ivan tried to go a bit late on the brakes. And there's another issue from him. And that's definitely not the kind of start that he was hoping for there. Yeah, Ivan tried to look down the inside of turn 1 just a bit too late. Already, there we go, and just that far off there. You know, when you get off into the marbles there and then the gravel, that's not going to do your traction and your grip any favors. And there's a spin down to 11th place. Cellino seems to have been the only guy from the front starters to have been, well, more or less unimpeded. But of course, all of our eyes were on Ephraim there, coming from far back, I think 8th or 9th and, at the start, up to 4th place, just parting the seas there. And Chris Pateri, of course, has gotten and gained a position as well with Rike's spin at the start.
Exactly up to 7th place and serving penalty. There goes Kenneth there in the foreground of shot, having a spin at the Parabolica corner. Easy to do, narrow on the inside, missed the braking point, and then ran out of off track to work with there and found gravel, which was never ever going to be the nice thing to see. Gap at the front, 3.1 seconds already for Windy, and it might just be the same old story that we can see as those boards there that are trying to stop people from cutting over the circuit are just getting absolutely bombarded by vehicles right now, as that's Rike down to 7th here, with Chris Pateri now up into 6th, and Mr. Collin in 5th, who's in the grass there at the inside of the corner, which is very rare to see. Chris Pateri looking at the inside now for the Della Roggia. Rike's thinking about one down the inside as well. Chris Pateri's gone far too deep and goes straight on, takes a reset to get back out on track. Rike there up into 5th place. It's easy to do, and that's a case of forcing the error from Chris Pateri, who just broke in far too deep. And you could argue there that Rike very nearly didn't make the corner either.
Yeah, I think Rike took a little bit too much of an example from Chris Pateri there, but very well saved onto the right-hand side curb. And of course, Mr. Collin might be just a little bit angry in that cockpit there. Just having not one, but 2 cars absolutely dive-bombing into the Variante della Roggia. And as it seems, Rike, you know, he cost him a lot of time. And, oh, that's not very good for Mark. Oh, well, actually, Mr. Collin, sorry. That's not very good for Mr. Collin there overall either. Losing first 2 places, and now, just as he was about to start getting back at Rike after losing those places, yeah, just taking a bit too much off the curb, car getting unsettled, and then just going straight off into the gravel on the right when he should be turning left instead.
It's probably the easiest thing to say, but when you turn right into a left-hand corner, you know you're not going the right way, so to speak. So that one not good for one Mr. Collin, because he knows that his qualifying was really excellent, but it seems that the race has not gone exactly the same way here. Lap 3 of 17, a lot of debris scattered over the circuit then after the early laps that we have seen there down at the Retafilo, the opening section of track. This is the battle for 5th place though. Rike and Mark trying to work with each other to move up through the field, chase down Ephraim in 4th position, and maybe if they're lucky they can get to Relaxco as they move on forward. Haven't really talked about the tyres. Most people going for the soft compounded tyres, a couple drivers going for mediums here today, and Marino is one going for the medium, looking for a bit of consistency at this point in time. But Rike at the moment starting to pull that gap away here from Mark. It's 1.3 seconds. They're only 1.7 behind Ephraim in 4th.
Yeah, a lot of guys seem to be getting a little bit anxious here to get a move done and then outbrake themselves. And at the same time, Ephraim's start luck is starting to run out a little bit, I'd argue, because now he's starting to get caught by Rike and Mark, of course. But nevertheless, I think this has got to be the best start that we've seen in the last, I don't know, 5 weeks.
Absolutely, it's been an incredible start. Normally it's a case of people building into these sorts of races, but it has been a case where everybody now is starting to really find themselves a case of, well, we want to gain positions, we want to gain them early. But the big issue about that start was drivers trying to gain places on drivers who needed to have that formation to go and attack. Windy's got the biggest advantage of everyone as we've got some side-by-side there for 7th and 8th place. This is Ivan going through on Chris Pateri to pick up that place, and do so absolutely fantastically. And it's worth noting that we do have stewards here today from the Malta Motorsport Federation, FIA accredited stewards, as Chris Pateri desperately tries to keep the car pointing straight, goes heavy over the curb. Ivan gives a lot of room, a half spin there over that curb, and Chris Pateri has to yield that place by a couple of seconds. The opening incidents will all be reviewed after the race, so if anything has come up from the replays that we have seen and any incidents that have happened, they're all going to be done in post. So make sure that you watch the space, because everybody knows that it's all going to be provisional at this stage. Windy 4.8 seconds clear of Shalina, who is himself 4 seconds clear of Relax in third position. The top three are almost 10 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. And now look at this battle. Ephraim under pressure. Remember, Ephraim did not have the best of qualifyings, does not have the best of pace, but really took an opportunity. The ultimate opportunist, some would say, like Edge, and now wants to try and hold on to this place for as long as possible. Rike just needs to play the patience game here, Nicholas. There's no point trying to go out aggressive too early with the car that you know you're quicker against.
Most definitely, but I think he's going to try and go aggressive anyway, because he sees in the rearview mirror that Mark is right on his tail as well. And Ephraim, he's still trying to fight against it, holding it too wide, but around the outside goes Rike. Very clean move, very nicely done. And Mark in the background just seemed to go a little bit too hot in that. But nevertheless, now in the slipstream as well, so he's going to try and get past the Papa Smurf-mobile of Ephraim as well, and of course keep chasing Rike, but the distance between him and Ephraim is a bit bigger, and Ephraim now looking to the inside. Try a little bit of mind games with Rike and maybe make him mess up a little bit.
Well, this is one of the keys, really, when you look at this circuit, Nicholas. It's the fact that if someone does make a move at you, say at Parabolica, you do have that opportunity to try and get back into the mirrors and try and be aggressive and get back. This is one of the really cool tactical chess circuits that many people see. And, you know, it's the sort of thing where if you're trying to play 3D chess, then you have to try and play 4D chess, try and get through, and then you're trying to think about, well, if you're going to play 4D chess as Ephraim runs wide and Mark gets a little angle to the inside, somehow recovered by Ephraim, you end up trying to play 5D chess with time travel, and suddenly you realise that the game was won in 3D chess or 2D chess with just queen to F8 mate.
Getting quite tactical here, and
he's off.
That's not all too tactical from Papa Smurf here. And yeah, Ivan, after his absolutely disastrous start, is going to be thanking him for that, and of course going to try and chase down Mark and Rike with that. As we see here what happened, I just missed the turning point a bit too late on the brakes, and yeah, that's just not going to help anyone at this stage here, except of course Ivan.
Well, Ivan also had a bit of a slide, so that didn't work. Now, Windy in, first stop of the day, lap 5, so that's a 3-stop if ever I saw one, unless this is the short stint right now from Windy. The first taker onto the pit, Shalinu, has stayed out. Relax has stayed out as well. So that could be a real indication here on how drivers want to run this race. It seems like Windy is maybe using the tyres more. Mark's also going to dive down in from 5th place. Drivers thinking pit in at the end of lap 5. Others are thinking, well, if we can go to lap 6 and we can do 2 6s and a 5, well, we're home and dry. And I think that's the plan for a lot of people in this field.
Yeah, you saw Windy still had 33% of his fuel tank left, so I think that a single stop will definitely be possible, even with the bigger gaps that Relax and Shalino have to each other. But I think at this point in time, it's probably the best move for them to try and go for that single stop. Because if Windy, well, at this point, Windy will definitely have to go for a second stop. If they can just stretch it a couple more laps, up to, you know, lap 8 or 9, and then keep up the pace, I think Shalino and Relax might be looking for a very nice way for a strategic victory against Windy here.
The halfway stage is around lap 8, lap 9. If they can stretch the tank that far, then that's going to be a really impressive achievement if they can just get a stop off of it. But they do have that disadvantage running long, going for a one-stop strategy here today, of the fact that the tyres are going to be screaming out in agony, especially the soft, which really do not like losing all of that tyre tread and putting it on the road. There's Chris Pateri in 8th place. There is Shalinu, currently your race leader right now, expected to dive down into the pits for a 2-stop call here today. And, well, that's the call. Straight in comes Shalinu then at the end of lap 6 to go and make that stop. You can see 18% of the tank remaining in that one. Relax is going to follow in 19% of the tank, so able to be a little bit lighter on the Thunderfoot, some would say. But there will go Windy back out into the race lead. No ifs, no buts, no ands about it. That fuel application does take a little while as Rike also dives down in for the lane.
Yeah, I suppose that Windy went for the earlier pit stop to have a bit of a shorter pit stop as well, because the more fuel you have left in your tank, the less you have to refuel. So, yeah, I completely read that wrong, it seems, and yeah, Windy seems to be getting, well, not quite a bigger gap, because the gap was, I think, at over 9 seconds when he came in, so a little bit it has shrunk, but nevertheless, he's still quite clear in the open.
I'll disagree with you there on that one. That gap looked to be somewhere in the margin of 5 seconds, and Shalinu's stop was quite a bit longer than Relax's. That gap down to under 2 seconds now on the road, where it used to be up near 4 or 5 seconds. So work to be done again from Shalinu to build the gap again, but does have a little bit of an extra buffer zone when it comes to this race, and that crucially is the fact that fuel is on the side. There's Kenneth, 5/10 second slowdown penalty already administered, but having a little bit of a moment there coming into the opening chicane, the Variante Rettifilo, in through the right, in through the left, heavy over the curbs, and really struggling there with power on the exit. So easy to just dip a wheel into that gravel and have the vehicle spin on you. It's also so very easy to unsettle the car on those anti-cut curbs, as Chris Spiteri now finds Ephraim's mirrors and trying to get through and get that extra position going.
Yeah, and Ephraim is now starting to drop back a little bit. He was a bit slower than most cars in the qualifying session, but of course, with that fantastic start, he moved himself up quite a bit. Chris Spiteri now going to be looking for the outside for... Oh, well, actually, now the switch back here. Ephraim is actually going for the outside, but no, just not looking for a move at all. Quite interesting to see here. And Ephraim is a bit wide there, missing a bit of the apex and struggling for grip a little bit, trying to take a few tighter lines.
Bit of contact there through the corner. You can see the scuffing now on the front right fender, so to speak, of the Lamborghini Huracan. And now on the brakes, looking at Parabolica. Backed out of it at the last moment did Chris Spiteri, trying to pick up as much of a run as possible on Ephraim here in the battle for 7th position on the road. You can't afford to be too aggressive around this place, because often this circuit does not forgive, does not forget. In the moment you make one small mistake, larger mistakes follow on and compound from that. But Chris Spiteri here in 8th place, not quite in a position to make that a reality right now. Now, here's something else that's going to be very key. The fact that Windy came in early and took a 5-lap stint instead of a 6-lap stint, now on 1-lap older tyres, and that is making the gap pretty even right now, only extended to 9 seconds. There's Ivan, who is the big gainer in all of the stops right now. He's up into 4th place.
I think one of the big gainers of the pit stops, actually. I was completely wrong there. Sorry, I read the wrong gaps as I was quoting for Windy and Shalinu. But I'm pretty sure Shalinu and Relax were a bit further apart during the pit stops than just 2 seconds. So, yeah, a bit of movement across the entire field. And Mark, meanwhile, having fallen back behind Ivan obviously very desperate to make up for his very, very big mistake at the start. But yeah, Mark still within slipstream range, and of course going to try and still fight. Round 2, here we go. Coming into Ascari is Chris. Close enough this time, definitely looks that way, and now on the brakes on the very inside, completely compromising his exit of the first left-hander there, but it works. So a bit unorthodox with that corner entry, but sometimes unorthodox methods work the best, it seems, and Ivan only now going into the pits.
That tells you all you need to know. If people are looking to dive and try and get through it, looks like Ephraim is actually staying out and trying to attack back here with Chris Spiteri, who take an eye at Mr. Colin going around and struggling massively down at the back of the pack. It seems like it's been a horrible, horrible race so far. Ivan now down into the pits then on lap 8, so looking to try and go as long as possible, so that's going to be key. And there's a slowdown, and a big one at that for Shalinu here. 1.5 seconds down to 1.3 overall, and look at the gap behind, 1.3 seconds. This is going to be a tall order battle to get that all slowed down, which will either have to be done on the track or post-race.
Yes, and if he leaves it for post-race, it could get quite tricky, because now Relax is almost within a second, and it's still, well, now it's down to 1.0, but Relax is starting to get into striking range against Shalinu, and this is definitely not what Shalinu wants, because, of course, the Slipstream Fest will start here.
Speaking of that, Ivan picks up half a second's worth of penalty, but has to go out and be aggressive here. That's Chris Pateri just in front, pitted right into the middle of the battle, and that's not part of the plan. Going through the second Lesmo, huge oversteer. Ivan's penalty all but served at this stage, and look at that, straight on by through the left-hand kink. Up the rise they go. I'm not sure Chris has got anything. Fall back into line. Why don't you? Chris will immediately try and go back and be as aggressive as possible here in terms of this battle, but it's not enough. Ivan has the place up into 7th overall, and now eyes on Ephraim 2.5 seconds down the road. Ivan, work to do, trying to make this one work on a one-stop now. Has to go 9 laps on the fuel. This is going to have to be a fuel save if Ivan wants to pick up places here in this one. But again, now Ephraim struggling with 1.4 seconds of slowdown. It seems like the penalties here are rather large for the amount that you can go from top speed to low speed.
Yeah, it's definitely not optimal. You said before, you know, track limits are very harsh here. And yeah, definitely, if you make a mistake at these high speeds, then you're going to be looking at very high penalties, of course. It starts with, of course, just a couple tenths, which are a lot easier to just get rid of. But these 1 second penalties and further, we see Shalinu still struggling with his 1 second, now going down to, oh, well, actually, that is a 3 second gap now. So Relax must have had something happen to him there, and of course, Shalinu now has a chance to relax, unlike Relax in 3rd place.
That's very crucial here, this gap. Shalinu then has got it down to 7 tenths. He's building a margin to try and use as a buffer and keep a margin so that Relax does not gain in terms of the slipstream in the battle that's going on. One of the things that could have been a factor to seeing that gap rise could have been Mr. Colin in terms of the lapped traffic here that's starting to accrue and build up here, who is now 1 lap down in this race, and we're expecting 10th place to also be a lap down at this point that we have just seen out on screen. Here is Windy going on to an 11th lap though, and a 6th lap of the stint, so that's key. Windy getting the short stint out of the way first, trying to build that gap more. It's up now almost at 11 seconds here. Not as big of a margin as it was at Brands Hatch, but you have to remember as well, Brands Hatch saw a lot of the main names run into troubles. Gap now on the penalty for Shalinu down to half a second, with Mark now in 4th position, leading the best of the rest. Only 1.7 though ahead of Rike. That gap's still close.
Yeah, and Rike, we've seen him at Brands Hatch to be one of the drivers that just doesn't let off. Even when he's starting to make mistakes, you know, he's going to still keep on fighting, and that's one of the things that is, of course, very important in any sort of racing drive, whether virtual or real. It's this tenacity to just never let go of an opportunity once you have it in your sights. And Ephraim, at the meantime, he's still up in 6th place, somehow got past, you know, Ivan and, of course, Chris Pateri as well. Chris Pateri, meanwhile, has gone down a bit further, now on his pit stop on lap 10, and that's quite a bit of refueling to be done there.
Absolutely, a very short stop and back out and away on the medium compound with almost a full tank of fuel. So if that's any indication, it's a case of trying to get maybe a more stable tyre and a more stable run to the end. That tyre will not be as quick. It's roughly a second a lap you lose on the medium compound compared to the soft compound of tyre, which everyone seems to think is the choice. Race leader dives down in, 3% of the tank remaining, could not go any further than that. Shalinu now down to 1/10 of a second of penalty to serve. That's been a wonderful serving of that penalty, but stays out again, going for 6 laps once more. So no surprises, will retake the race lead. Now will Relax decide to come down into the pits, and that's a divergence of strategy.
Yeah, I think Relax is trying to get his shots in out of the way now to just get the pit stop just done, because the gap grew even further, up to 8 seconds, so obviously having a bit of trouble there, and of course with the 9 times tire wear, if you're just doing a couple too many mistakes, it's gonna cost you way more time to just stick with that strategy for one more lap instead of just, just getting new tires and trying to start over with that. And Ephraim, meanwhile, still staying ahead of Ivan, and that was another car back there who fell victim to Parabolica. That's Marino, and he's going to be diving down to pit lane as well. That's actually into the wall there.
It's not often
Quite unusual.
It's not often you see that's a Parabolica there. Marino into the wall, has overheated the rear tyres and can't get them all pointed together. So we'll be in the pits, we'll be getting a fresh set, we'll be getting back out again, but with one less lap compared to everybody else. This is your race leader at the moment. It's Shalinu at this stage, but just needs to put together a good stage of laps here. The penalty fully served there through the first part of the Ascari chicane, and now focus. That pit stop should be this lap. Drivers, for example, like Relax, will be trying to jump onto the back of Rike here and get some toe in the final sector to try and get through. And look at the gap behind there to Windy, the main rival that Shalinu has to race with here today. And that's going to be key. I've just seen as well on the timing tower that Rike has just jumped ahead of Mark out on circuit. So they have just changed places. That's going to be Rike now up into third as Shalinu dives down in for the final stop, the final scheduled stop, I should say, of the day. There is Windy in second position, who is about to take the race lead back.
Yeah, and yeah, for Rike it's definitely worked out quite well so far. Shalino, I think, is a bit out of his striking range, and I think he also still has to pit in this lap, and yeah, that is true. There we go, heads into the pit lane for his scheduled stop, Mark right behind him. And that's going to see Relax coming back up to third place. Of course, he now lost a quite bit chunk of time. There we go, 11 points. It's still going down, but still it seems to be above 10 seconds at the moment. And of course, that's not what Relax wanted whatsoever. But I think in that situation, with a couple of mistakes, you ruin these tires quite fast with 9 times wear, and of course it was the better option to do for Relax in this situation.
Well, it was the bullet that Relax really had to bite there in terms of this race. Took less fuel on that opening stop to close the gap down by 2 seconds, then had to take more fuel in that final stop because of what's gone on. Ephraim also down in on the lane, out and away. Now will be in 7th position on the road as things stand, with a handful of drivers yet to come in. Windy in control of this one. The gap now 10 seconds at the front of Shalinu in second. But I think the focus here in terms of the late stages is going to be whether Ivan here can make a one-stop work here. That's Shalinu in second, that's Relax in third, but it's Ivan in 6th place to keep an eye out on a very late opening stop, when 8 laps on the stint. And if it's a case of being able to squeak out 9 on the fuel, there's going to be a lot of lifting and coasting on that final stage. 19 seconds the gap to Ephraim. That's going to be a lot of time to work with, but it all depends on the tank. A splash and a dash won't be doing anyone any favours.
Yeah, and that is the big predicament he finds himself in now, because of course he doesn't have that much pressure from behind. 19 seconds is a quite nice buffer, but in case he has calculated a little bit, too thin, and in case, he just can't quite make it work, he does have to pit again, and you lose around 20 seconds for a pit stop here. Well, of course that's for full service, but still, suddenly those gaps will be quite a bit smaller. And yeah, I think for Ivan in this situation, it's mainly just about damage limitation, with of course this start accident that he thought of course there by diving down the inside of Shalinu.
Here is Windy at the front of the field, 3.5 laps to go, has led all bar all bar a couple of laps in this race, as the fastest lap had pole position. It has been a wonderful race so far for Windy in terms of how to make this one work. There's Relax with a kicker tail in the Lamborghini, getting that one all nicely situated, heading towards the 2 Lesmo right-hand corners, which almost feel like they don't belong on this track, but also feel like they do belong on this track as they go on through, or he goes on through, on towards the next section of road, up the hill and back towards Ascari once again. It's been a case of a lot of drivers finding themselves in small little pockets. Their races effectively 10 seconds apart, each up and down the field, and sometimes more in certain respects. This has been a race defined by the opening lap of this one, and then the strategies that maybe differed, but maybe made a couple of mistakes for a driver here or there.
And these mistakes are really what determines the final results predominantly, as it seems here. Simply because one single mistake here, it's well, you could almost compare it to the Pirelli tires in F1. You know, in qualifying, you have one lap on those soft tires, and then those tires are just completely gone. So yeah, quite a bit difficulty there. Just getting the tires to work completely throughout the entire race, and we saw how Relax sometimes take these little power slides out of chicanes, and do that a couple times too often, and yeah, the rear tires will definitely not say thank you to that on the long run.
And of course, Ivan then cannot make it home on fuel, and everything else comes down in. The tyres may look like they are spent. It's going to take a little splash of fuel to get it home and over the line. And there from 34% of the tank up to 55% of the tank as a buffer for 3 laps to go. Effectively there, that's a free pit stop. Back into 6th place, out and away without too many worries at all about Ephraim behind. And effectively, if you have that margin, you go in, get that stop, you get back out and going again. There's no harm and foul. It doesn't matter if you're behind by a minute or if you're behind by a second. If you're in 6th place, you're in 6th place. That's racing.
Yes, and he definitely made that pit stop quite in a nice position there. Got a new set of rubbers while he was at it, and of course with soft tires he does have a lot more potential to just keep going than on mediums. And yeah, nice comfy gap of 5 to 6 seconds still ahead of the Papa Smurf car. Meanwhile, I think in the background... Oh, that's another crash there at Parabolica from Marino here. Definitely not his corner, it seems. And you can see him just trying to constantly countersteer there, almost hitting Cellino there. So a very close situation. And that was definitely a Code Brown moment for Cellino there, because, of course, the last thing that you want is a collision with a back marker.
Absolutely, and that's going to be one of the worries. It's a corner which, in these Lamborghini Huracan GT3 vehicles, you always want to try and get in as early as possible onto the apex, but find that the rear does want to step out and that grip does go away. And when you try to go into a corner that's so long that requires you to ease off the brake onto the accelerator to get that secondary kick of grip that comes in, always need to try and work out how fast do you want to go. And a lot of people don't quite understand this as they start to learn and get into sim racing and racing. It's the fact that the downforce becomes so vital at a corner like Parabolica. The more you have, the faster you go into that corner. Effectively, the faster you go out of that corner as well. If you start trying to be timid about it and get scared with the corner, you're going to lose a lot more time than you think you would.
Yeah, the slow exits sometimes work out, but usually just on far tighter circuits. And, you know, Monza really is one of these flowing circuits, and even on the tighter parts, you're just far better off just going slow in and fast out, and yeah, take all of the traction, all of the possible, you know, acceleration with you to just make the most out of the run. And of course, at the end of the straight, you will have a couple kilometers an hour more on your speedo than just normally with, you know, sideways action like we saw from Relax. And now Windy started the final lap. These 17 laps once again just flew by like it was nothing. And for Windy, it seemingly, well, also thanks to the turn 1 action there, a nice Wednesday evening drive so far.
Absolutely. It seems to be that Wednesday is the night of Windy at this stage, as we are on the final lap then of this race overall, and it is a comfortable margin for a lot of drivers up and down the field, everyone in a 10-second buffer zone around everyone else at this moment in time, from Cellini to Relax Racing to Rike to Mark right now. The only difference is that gap 7 seconds right now to Ivan, to Ephraim, to Kenneth and co. And you keep on going through the list. They all have themselves a margin here. Try and get to the next car, which is just far too unscalable at the moment. Little slide there from Windy, heading out of the second Lesmo corner, and now that rise comes up once again, heading towards the left of the Ascari chicane. Always a place where you want to be at the very, very edge of the grip, using all of the tyre wall that's available through the left, now the right, and now the left. And only one corner remains now in terms of this race for a driver who once again has walked away with this one. He looks at this series, he looks at all of these challenges going on, and he goes, challenge? What challenge? I'll even flash my headlights as I go by to say hello to everyone. On the brakes for Parabolica for the final time, takes the nice wide line through the corner. A little bit of a wiggle in the mid part as he gathers up the grip once again, but the run to the line, well, we're spending most of our time living in Windy's paradise. It's a victory by a very, very comfortable margin. It's Shalina who's going to come home with second place and relax in third, but what can you say when Windy walked away with it after everyone came together at turn number 1?
Well, that is of course the big thing here, as Relax finally comes around Parabolica here. It was certainly an up and down race for him here, but of course the talk of everyone, of course another case of Windy Wednesday. He just blows his opponents away, so to speak. And yeah, when the opponents blow each other away, it's of course making the job a bit easier for him. So very unlucky here. Rike, meanwhile, just in front of Mark, makes it around Parabolica. Mark right on his toe, but I don't think can quite transform it into something. Loses another 2/10 there.
That was 7 seconds a lap ago, and the margin over the line is just 1. So a mistake from Rike on the last lap means that Mark really does close down that one, but doesn't get close enough. There's Ivan coming over the line in 6th place, and only 15 seconds remain for everyone to get over the line. If they are unable to, they will be automated in terms of where they finish come the end of this one. There'll be a handful of drivers making the push to the line. Ephraim will just about get over the line, I think, come the end, but the clock effectively stops there. Windy is your race winner by a good 10-11 seconds overall here in the Lamborghini Challenge, and it is effectively a case of child's play at this moment. 3-star race, pole position, fastest lap, and all clean laps to go along with that as well. But focus now turns to 1 week's time from now at this stage here, and when you're talking about what we've got here coming up, a Formula Challenge is so much different to that Huracan.
Yeah, most definitely. You'll have a lot more slipstream, of course, with Formula cars because they just produce a lot more drag with those wings, but also a lot more cornering action because they produce so much more downforce. And with Red Bull Ring, if I'm correct, we have quite an interesting track there. Pretty rich, of course, as well with, you know, racing history, and also one of these very classic circuits here in Europe.
And it's one of those classic circuits, well, that Red Bull Ring, where we will find ourselves next week. So if you haven't already, make sure you like, share, subscribe, come back to this place, same time, same place, 1 week from now, and make sure that you enjoy everything that is going to be going on. A massive look, though, at this coming up next. You've got the Formula Challenge, of course, in 1 week's time. You've got the Beat Mount Panorama Challenge in 3 weeks' time. That is going to be very entertaining to have a look forward to. And the only place you can find that is with World Pro Racing's action. If you haven't already, head over to worldproracing.com. Sign up now if you want to join in some amazing races. And it's not just Gran Turismo Sport that goes on with World Pro Racing. There are so many different platforms where World Pro Racing is a massive, massive help. A massive thanks, though, to those who have helped with this broadcast. Of course, to Adrian Fagayo and George Muscat, who have been stewarding this race out overall here in terms of this one. You've got Justin Nathan Mifsud on the cameras. Nicholas Hillebrand's been on my left-hand side. My name, of course, has been Jake Sparrow. You've been watching on YouTube, Facebook Live, on Twitch, on TVM Sports, on motorsport.tv, and on ESTV as well. It's Windy Wednesdays, ladies and gentlemen. It happens once again. A completely dominant display, which many people are looking at going, well, that national championship will be coming up pretty soon. and that national championship will need Windy to be at his level best. But if he's showing this sort of pace now, then the likes of Kyoto may have something to worry about. We're going open formula next week, so you'll definitely want to try and tune in. This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, Game Breaker Malta, GMR Entertainment, WJ England and Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
It's just so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.